Okay, Rebecca, you sat down, and before we started recording, you wanted to tell me about something really disgusting, and I asked you if you want to talk about it on the podcast, and you said
so
yes.
So bad.
What's going on?
It's so like urban bad. So in Seattle, a lot of our trash cans are at the street. Like, it's just how things work. So there's a very large compost bin at the street. Somebody opened many, many large cans of wet dog food and put them in my just the wet dog food. The cans can't be found. Somebody's asked me if I found the cans. The answer is no. Many, many wet cans of dog food in the compost bin.
Wait, so you go out to the street and you can smell or see?
The worst smell.
Okay, and you're thinking, what is going on the street? And you investigate, you open up maybe your garbage bin, your recycling bin, and then your compost bin, and you see in there what looks to be like dog food, because how do you know it's dog food?
So true. Could be something else.
Oh my God, why would you assume it's dog food?
Because there's so much of it.
But that's such a bizarre thing. Why would someone take...
Exactly.
So I don't think it's dog food. I'm sorry to say.
Well, I
think it's a lot of shit. Or something.
That would be like
or
an
vomit.
Unbelievable amount of shit.
Or
like,
vomit. Well, it's an unbelievable amount of dog food. Like, why in the world would someone have wet... If it was dry dog food and it was old, maybe. But, like, why would someone even bother if it was old dog food?
Just throw it away.
Right.
Why do you feel the need to...
And why would someone use your compost bin?
Yes. Yeah, so many questions.
No.
Here.
I mean, maybe I shouldn't dispel the myth. Maybe dog food is the best option available in your mind. But golly, I mean, what else could be? I mean, I guess dog food doesn't really smell like poop.
No.
But some animals have poop that smells like dog food.
Well, I will just say the quantity that somehow somebody had been collecting this much semi-solid, horrible spelling substance... Unbagged. That was the other thing. Like, they make compost bags or like...
Right.
Yeah. And I live in a neighborhood where people poop in bags and put that in your garbage. Like, that is... I feel like we haven't dropped that far off in society yet. Like, people still... I mean, anyways, I won't get into it. But that's not... Guess what? That's not the worst of it.
Ugh.
So it smells so bad that like half the block reeks of this smell.
Yeah. And it's coming from your bin.
Yeah. It started smelling bad on Sunday. It's currently Tuesday and the bin doesn't get picked up till Thursday. But last night I walked by. This is so gross. The entire bin was covered in maggots on the outside of the bin. Like a fucking horror movie.
On the outside?
On the outside.
On the outside.
On the outside. So you
didn't even want to open it.
Right. So I posed, now I'm like itchy and everything. Ugh. So I guess maggots are a huge trigger for me. I think they are for most people. So I polled a bunch of people of like, what do I do? And somebody said, you have to cover it in wood chips or something with a stronger smell. So I polled my neighbors. Somebody had an extra bag of mulch. I spent my morning picking up that bag of mulch, driving it back to my house, cutting it open, only putting half to cover whatever the substance is, seeing all of the maggots.
You opened it.
Seeing all the maggots on the inside, completely covered in maggots. And the smell of the mulch, it smells intense. But also, I was warned by people, don't put the whole bag in because then it'll be too heavy for the crew to move it, and you'll be stuck with this problem for another week.
I wonder if that's against the rules. Because, some of those compost bins are picked up by machines.
Yes. So,
in fact, I would assume that all of them are.
Well, yeah, but even getting it, you have to get it off the curb, just out of courtesy to them. I don't want them breaking their back in this horrible story. I'm sure they've seen all kinds of terrifyingly disgusting things.
Golly.
So anyways, when you smell the horrible smell and you can't get the smell out of your nose, I'm doing my best to be present, but thank you for letting me once again tell this story and give everyone else nightmares. And tell people, in case you didn't know, don't put wet dog food. Just throw the whole can away. Okay, everyone?
Yeah. just go on, believe him. It's dog food. That's a better option. All right. Email. Anonymous long-term patron. She says, "Dear Doctor."
Hold on, you're tall. Are you going to stay tall the whole session?
I am.
Okay.
If I sit, my back, and there's all
Okay.
sorts of problems. So
Okay, so I'm sitting. Kirk is tall. I
Yeah.
don't feel intimidated. This is like you're pulling a Lyndon B. Johnson move here.
that's a funny reference. Yeah. He was known for pulling these kinds of moves. And
I went to his museum. I don't know if you can see. I think there is the desk. There is a lot of stuff in his memorial library of him pulling this, of being taller than everybody.
yeah. Well, he also was known for taking a shit while talking to people and leaving the door open, which I have to say for, I think I've alluded to this before. So maybe this isn't new information, but in my family, I don't know if it's a Japanese thing or the white side coming from like rural poverty or something in Kansas. But like we weren't really big on, and also there's a lot of people in our house. We weren't super big on privacy when it came to anything. I don't remember closing doors very often or being worried about just walking. I would walk in on my parents while I never thought to knock on the door. No one ever did. Or maybe it was just me. I don't know. But like, I wouldn't like hang out with my dad in the bathroom while he's on the toilet. But if I had something I had to ask him or tell him about, like the time when I had learned that cigarettes cause cancer, and I went in there and told him that he needs to stop smoking cigarettes. I'm gonna just go in, and no one's gonna blink an eye. So when I hear about LBJ in the White House, sitting on the toilet conducting, because one of the things he was really known for, and that he was a social justice warrior for us, was
poverty.
That he fought for rights.
Yeah.
He was kind of a paradox in a way,
Yeah.
But he carried JFK's vision forward after JFK died, because LBJ actually, he was vice president. He stepped in. And
this is an American history lesson, everyone.
Yeah, and the Civil Rights Act was championed by LBJ in 1965.
Right, and also in his library, you learn that poverty went down 15% during his presidency.
Yeah, he was one of the most progressive people in our history, including today. And one of the ways that he did this is by being personable and relatable, and a guy that you would get a beer with, as they say.
He's a real Texan.
And one of the ways that he did that is by having constant conversations with people and just being authentic, and that actually led to him being on the toilet and continuing to try to broker deals between Democrats and Republicans. So,
God.
So when you say that I'm pulling an LBJ, I take that with pride.
Yeah.
Dear Dr. Kirk and Rebecca, this seems really silly, but I have a really bad cold sore, which is technically oral herpes. My boyfriend doesn't know about cold sores in general. I texted him that I unfortunately won't be able to kiss him for probably a week because I have this oral herpes and it's super contagious. He suddenly had a lot of stigma around it, saying I might be cheating, and he doesn't trust me to have sex with me, and how could I have gotten this without cheating? Even though in reality I've gotten cold sores my whole life, ever since I was little, and there are a million ways you can get them. Sipping on a friend's drink, touching something and then touching your mouth, or wiping your mouth without realizing it, sharing food, etc. I did not cheat. I want to comfort him, but I'm also mad at him.
Yeah, and this is HSPV2?
I forget. Yeah, there's the simplex 1, simplex 2.
Okay.
I think there might be another one in there. But she goes on to say, I also want to say, I can't believe that you think I would cheat on you. What should I say?
Wow. Well, there's a lot of education here that needs to happen around herpes. It can be a long dormant virus. It's completely treatable. There's all kinds of treatments where we can now test for viral load and know that somebody's not contagious. So he is massively uneducated about how the virus works in the body. And this is, using shame tactics when I would hope he would have said, wow, I didn't know you got cold sores. Can I have more information? But why is he landing on cheating? I think that says something rather large about him.
And whatever weird echo chamber he's in. I wouldn't be surprised if he's got at least a few toes in the red pill waters, the Andrew Tate or the incel or MGTOW, and there's a lot of that younger men. I feel bad for younger people.
To learn about what's going on in the world. I'm like, really? Ew. Is this what they talk about? Gross.
Well, so what they talk about is a general narrative and conspiracy theory, essentially, that the world is out to get men and that the feminist agenda is a power grab and is not genuine, and that really it's men who are disadvantaged, and that women use power against men because they can withhold sex or marriage or companionship, and they are also kind of stupid at the same time. Even though they're these massive geniuses that know how to manipulate men on a grand scale, they're also really stupid in that they only are attracted to the chads, the hot guys, or the guys who are mean or who are the sort of douchebags of the world, that kind of thing, And so they have, from that, these notions that are flying around. There's a lot of discourse in these circles around infidelity and cheating, and how if a woman cheats, it's okay, and if a guy cheats, it's wrong, and that if a woman and women, all they want to do is cheat and hurt you, and it's populated by men who I'm sure a lot of them have actually been feelings hurt in the course of dating and whatnot, maybe even by some jerk faces, women, but they go to these circles for comfort because there isn't good comfort out there, unfortunately. And so there's comfort in the immediacy, but as the time goes on, they are indoctrinated it literally into a cult that supports these ideas. And so I wouldn't be surprised if this boyfriend picked up his sex education about herpes and oral herpes, cold sores, from the internet. Like he saw somebody talking about how, oh, my woman showed up with cold sores, and that means then I found out that she was going down on guys, and she got, and that's why, and she's a bitch, and that's why we can't trust women. And like, I'm telling you, this is what's in that world.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know, obviously. It also could be that he's, perfectly fine in that area, and he's just misinformed. He clearly also has some kind of insecurity around this, which is normal for people to worry about losing their partners, to have some insecurity about, is my partner cheating? Are they going to leave me? Do they really love me? And this is a lightning rod for that insecurity for him, because even if you were right that it was transmitted to her from sexual contact, it could have been years earlier, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So what he is concluding is wrong on so many levels. One, that you only get oral herpes from sexual contact. And I imagine he's thinking about fellatio or something, And then two, that the fact that she has an outbreak right now means that she has never had...
Right, something's happened right now, as opposed to like the virus lies dormant in the body for long periods of time, and stress and all kinds of things.
Right. And I'm assuming that anonymous long-term patron told him, saying, this is not my first outbreak. I've had them since I was a kid. So unless I was cheating on you as a 2-year-old, then this isn't evidence of me cheating on you. I'm assuming she said that, and I'm assuming from context that he didn't believe her or something. So yeah, I right. So what do you do though? How do you fix the problem?
Well, I think you have to ask, is he willing to learn more and maybe learn why his opinion is wrong, and understand what's going on? But also, does she want to be with someone like this? Is this his first angry outbreak? He's having an outbreak also of anger And there's clearly distrust here, which brings up the question I asked you earlier over text, which I want to interview you about.
Which is what?
Which is, I asked you about a certain type of couples counseling, and you said,
right.
I don't do that type of couples counseling. And I was like, is there even a book you would recommend? Because everybody, I'm getting certified in sex therapy. I'm doing way more couples work than I've ever done, and I could use an underpinning right now.
Well,
and you said,
let's talk about that after the break, which I think would be an interesting conversation. But just to wrap up this, I will say that.
So he's having he's extremely anxious. She's avoidant about confronting him, or at least scared or overwhelmed. And they're really stuck.
Yeah. Yeah, and I will say that depending on what sort of cultural pocket you're in, there's at least some degree of stigma around herpes, around STIs. And
isn't it like it's a very large amount of the population that has herpes? Like,
yeah, I don't remember the exact.
50 or 70%. Like, it's large.
Yeah. And a good percentage have contracted herpes through sexual contact. So the stigma around it is intense. People will literally kill themselves when they get diagnosed with genital herpes.
Yeah, I have many, many times in individual work, I have worked with clients of how to tell new sexual partners that they have herpes. And it's a whole process. We practice for months before they feel like they have the nerve to tell potential partners. Also, my favorite factoid about sexually transmitted infections I learned when I was on the HIV hotline for the King County Health Department, like 1995 to 97. No sexually transmitted disease that has entered into the human population has ever been erased. So this idea that, like, we'll just get rid of it. Like, humans like to have sex. We've been passing sexually transmitted infections to each other, I don't know, since we first met each other. Like, yeah.
We have the ability to date when we diverged from other related species by analyzing the DNA of our genital lice.
Right. Crabs versus head lice. Yeah.
But they're all just within the louse family, I think. Anyway.
Oh, now I'm itching again.
Well, did you know that you have all sorts of organisms that are crawling all over you right now?
Yes, I know. Yes, because this is a menopause fact. The fact that, because often folks will notice that they smell different in menopause, and it's because of, as your estrogen and progesterone decreases, the presence of testosterone seems more in your body, and it actually attracts different bacteria. And that's why folks with more testosterone smell different than folks with more estrogen.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, like, there's different bacteria that's currently attracted to me right now.
Well, there's bacteria, but there's also literal insects that are crawling all over you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That with a microscope, they're not like on the cellular level. These are like
mites and all kinds of
bugs and slithery things. And
thanks.
Yeah. But it's all part of they're helpful.
Yeah.
We're in a symbiotic.
We're our own ecosystem.
Right. So the thing that so a long time ago, I had some clients, and I had a colleague who wanted me to be a part of a local convention for people with STIs. And she wanted me to provide a panel discussion on stigma and the psychology of it. And I learned a lot going to this convention because the participants largely showed up in disguises because they didn't want to be identified. And they were all terrified of being identified as having herpes or something else, And over time, mulling it over and dismantling my own stigma, it's hard. But one of the things that I tell myself to dismantle it is that we get infections, virus or bacteria, through various different methods across humans, right? and across species. You know, we all know about COVID or cold or the flu or some other sort of bacteria or a fungus infection, or, you know, like athlete's foot, they'll call it, right? Ringworm, head lice. If we don't talk about the things that are transmitted through sex or through genitals, we understand that there's a lot of things. It's not great when you give the flu to someone else or get the flu from a coworker. But you can obviously also get the flu when you're dating and kissing or rolling around or having sex, right? So the flu will be transmitted through various different ways. If you got the flu or if you got the common cold from dating, it would be something you could talk about at work. You could say, "Oh, I have a cold. How'd you get it?" "Well, I went on a Tinder date with this guy and he was sniffling and I made out with him. I think I might have gotten his cold. I don't know." You could easily say that without feeling like you have to kill yourself out of shame. But you talk about getting basically a cold of your junk, and suddenly it's completely a different story. Like, oh, you know, so it all just has to do with the Puritanism and the Victorianism and the shame and the religious shame around anything involving our genitals. As an asterisk to this, I have been yammering about people using bidets for decades. And for 20 years of me yammering about how if you got shit on your elbow, like if you accidentally like brushed up against those maggots and that whatever's rotting in your thing, would you just wipe it off with some toilet paper?
No, you'd wash it.
Fuck no. You would scrub with water at the very least, right? And so when you have shit on your bunghole, why would you just smear it around with toilet paper? Obviously, it's more clean if you use a bidet, but Americans are so phobic about their junk being referred to or acknowledged that they can't even have a conversation about a bidet because it acknowledges this, like, oh, that's right, we have a bunghole, we have a butthole, we have an anus, we have a rectum, we have shit on us, we shit, we poop. And lately, though, I've seen that changing. Ever so slightly, I'm starting to see white people in America actually considering or getting a bidet. So we're not progressive in some ways. We like to think of ourselves, even in progressive circles, as beyond those things. We are not beyond. And when it comes to STIs, we are certainly not beyond. And so when Anonymous Long-Term Patron talks about oral herpes and her boyfriend like completely flips the fuck out, part of that has to do with our society and just how stupid we are about all things related to one's junk. And that's what I have to say about that.
Amen.
Let's take a break, and when we get back, let's talk about
couples counseling.
Discernment counseling. All right, back from the break. So yeah, you texted me and asked me specifically if I knew anything. You said, "Do you have a book on discernment or discernment for couples I can borrow? Everything on Amazon is some Chat GPT trash."
In case people wonder what my texts sound like.
Yeah. I do know that there is a foundational or seminal work about discernment counseling by...
It's $70. That's why I was hoping you had it and I could borrow it.
I don't have it because by the time I had learned that this existed, I had my own. So for those who don't know, discernment counseling is a somewhat manualized or there's a method of providing counseling to couples to help them discern as to whether or not they want to stay together or break up. It's a common conundrum, and you can do it with individuals too, but it's commonly used for couples. You know, there's infidelity or there's been ongoing conflict or there's been ongoing distance or something. And often the decision as to whether or not to stay together or leave is very hard to make. There's a lot of complications. Obviously, if you have kids, people might be older. They might be wondering, well, if I leave this person and start a new relationship, is it going to be any better? I don't even know. Is it improved? Can it be improved? How do I make a decision about this? Should I, if like, so one of the things that I'll talk about with couples is like, or individuals, honestly, along these lines around trying to make this decision is I will say something like, okay, well, if you really hit it hard, the two of you, you could expect maybe like a 50% reduction in the problems over the span of a few years. And after that, if you continue to hit it hard in therapy and self-awareness and really put your back into it, that you might get another 20%, 25% reduction. But there's always going to be some of these issues because that's just the reality. Research shows that, and my experience does as well. Do you want to live with this person?
Yeah.
And you'll get some very interesting, very quick answers. Mm-hmm. Some people will say, fuck no. Even 20% of this problem I can't tolerate. I just can't. And other people will say, well, yeah, I guess so. It's not great, but when I think about it in my gut and when I consciously think of the pros and the cons, then I do. So I have a glancing understanding of the recommended model of discernment counseling. There's like worksheets and other kinds of exercises that can help. And I certainly support all that work. There's nothing wrong with it. But I already had my method. I already have my ways. And I tend to find that homework doesn't go over well with clients. Yeah. And so I just have a way of exploring it. And I have certain questions that I ask to illuminate. I also lower my expectations as to any kind of action taken by clients, because if they come to me asking to figure this out, even if it's the sole reason, and after a few months in one session, they're like, you know what, I think I know what I want to do, or a couple, you know what, I think I know what I want to do, then I personally, as a human, feel some satisfaction and some self-esteem that we got there. Well, I've learned over time that when they say that, it often doesn't mean anything in terms of action. Mm-hmm. That from the first time someone says, I'm actually done, and I'm going to leave, it might be 2 or 3 years before they actually pull the plug. And they might not ever pull the plug. So I have learned that I just have to roll with whatever happens and not get attached to any kind of action that they have proclaimed that they're going to do. And sometimes I'll even tell the clients this. I'll say, so you're telling me right now that you've made a choice to stay or to go. And in my experience, that it could mean a lot of things. It could mean that this will stick, but it could also mean that in a month you'll feel differently. So just take it easy on yourself and don't judge yourself for changing your mind, so to speak, down the line, because that's my experience, is that these things kind of fluctuate. If you don't see any fluctuation after for a full year in your resolve, then you could probably be confident that for the next year you will feel similarly. But if you feel something for a month, even 2 months, it's not clear if you'll feel that consistently. Anyway, so in terms of helping you, what sort of questions about how to help people do you have?
Well, I thought it was interesting that you were like, oh, it's based on attachment style. So I was, I don't know, what kind of questions do you ask people? What do you find that you're sitting with?
Yeah. Well, it kind of depends on what the ask is or what the presenting problem is. If it's a couple that have one person that's on the fence, or they're both on the fence, or you have one person that is on the fence, or you have one person that is 99% out of the door and they're just trying to make sure. There's a lot of different scenarios.
Yeah. I mean, I would say mostly what's coming my way is that one member of the partnership has a mental health issue that's profoundly impacting the couple. And the couple is trying to figure out how to stay together or not.
So one question I ask is, what percentage of you wants to be in this relationship, or what percentage of you wants to be with this person for the foreseeable future? Do you have a sense of where they are in terms of that?
Yeah, I mean, usually people are pretty conflicted about that. Right, that's why they're in therapy. I thought it was interesting. The base concept that I use with all clients addressing relationships is that at most, any relationship can meet 40% of your needs. And if you're expecting more than that, so as an individual therapist, that's how I've been working for decades. It's like, okay, we have to build up your outside life. If you're turning everything to your partner, of course, it's not going to go well. It wouldn't go well for anybody. So that's how I've been working for decades. I do find post-COVID, people have so little ability to build community that it's putting an added level of complexity onto everything.
More needs being funneled into one's marriage.
Yeah. Or people are more needs not being met by anybody. People are more isolated than ever. So there's a way, especially with young parents, where I'm like, just the most simplest thing, like, oh, go attend a birth class. Oh, those don't happen anymore. Or maybe you could get a doula at your birth. Oh, my state, there's none left in my state since COVID. Like, it's just like whole sections of support systems, especially for early family development, has been wiped away.
Yeah.
So I'm having to kind of relearn what kind of resources are out there, or how to best support somebody that's like, might have extremely limited emotional support.
Yeah.
Which puts even more stress on a marriage.
Yeah. So that everything you're just saying right there is in a category that I consider that I will explain overall when it comes to these kinds of requests or presenting problems or these kinds of goals that clients will have. So I'll just kind of go off of your, you gave some minor details, and so I'll just expand on a fictional couple. So we have a couple that comes in and there's been issues, like you're saying, one has a mental illness like depression or, I don't know, borderline or something. And then it's causing a lot of impact in their relationship, and they've had conflict, but they also kind of understand each other's difficulty with each other. And the other person has their own issues, and there's a lot of outside stressors, obviously, but there's a lot of distance, and they haven't felt close in years. And they typically will realize that if they get closer, they will fight. And so they just kind of stay in their respective silos and live parallel lives while functioning, but without any intimacy, because they're trying to avoid conflict. And then when they do get closer, there might be some closeness, but then soon enough, there's some kind of fight. And when you have distance and you're falling out of love with people, you're less tolerant, and so they get really annoying to you. And so for people, especially older, if you're younger, if you're like 22, typically people will just break up. But if you're like 40 or something and you have kids and whatnot, or even if you don't have kids, especially if you live together, it just feels like, well, God, it's gonna be such a pain in the ass. And do I really want to start dating again? And okay, do I want to be alone? We have such a rich history. We used to be in love. Isn't there a chance to get back there? So there's a lot of understandable, rational reasons to hesitate and to find answers, and coming to a therapist is obviously one of the main things people should do. So when they come to me, I will ask them this percentage question, and I will be surprised because I will hear from them a narrative of ambivalence, or of I'm almost going to leave, or we've already talked about divorce, or I've already packed my bags. But I will hear that they're 70% in the relationship. Or the opposite, you'll have someone that doesn't appear to be very upset and desperate to get out, and they'll say that they're like 15% in the relationship, or wanting to stay in the relationship. There's various different ways to ask it, but it can be kind of surprising. And I like to ask this question for assessment, also for them to hear each other, because that's important, to make it a little bit objective, to put a number on it. But then I will say, okay, So let's say that you're 50%. Then I will say, do you want to make it 60%? And if they say no, then that's an important question. That's an important thing to know, because it's often assumed in the room by everyone, therapist and client, that you all are going to try to improve that. If someone's 50%, of course, we're going to try to get that to 60%. We want to be 100%. But not everyone wants to be 60%. Not everyone wants to be, someone's 50%. They might want to stay there. They might want to give up now. Do they have it in them to put in the effort? And I want to also put it out there that that's a choice. And I'm not going to take on someone else's responsibility by trying to salvage a marriage that one or both people don't want to salvage. So I have to ask, do you want to make it 60%? Most people will say yes, even if it's a tentative yes, even if it's like, well, I don't know if I have it in me, but yeah, that's why we're here. This is our last kind of try. And yeah, if you have things that we could do to hopefully get it up to 60%, then that would be good. The other member of the couple, if they're 90%, they're obviously going to want their partner to move it up to 60, so they're motivated. So I say, okay, then here's what we can do in the first month, these things. We're going to try to reduce conflict. We're going to try to increase intimacy. We're going to try to reduce resentments, heal. We're going to try to, it's going to be a big task, and there's going to be some broken eggs as we make this omelet, but that's what you're asking me to do, and I'm telling you what you need to do, and I'm going to help you to get there. You might not get to 60%, but I'm telling you from experience, this is what's going to work. So, but you have to try, and you also have to tell me if you don't want to try. So
this is a motivational interviewing question. Is the client motivated for treatment?
It's not motivational interviewing,
but
it has to do with it has to do with motivation, but it's not motivational interviewing.
But it's the same concept of if the client it's not motivated, that's a really different type.
Well, motivational interviewing as a technique is a manipulative tactic to try to get people to be sober. I'm not doing that at all.
You're assessing a client's motivation, which I do as well individually. If a client's not motivated for treatment, that's a really different form
stage of change.
Yeah.
And what do they want? What are they asking? And breaking it down and testing it out, and giving them a path, because most people don't know how to get it from 50 to 60. They've probably tried. And that's what we're there as experts to do, is to lay out the path, talk about attachment, talk about self-awareness, talk about how to communicate that, how to get to those core feelings of fear and rejection and hurt, and how to communicate that, how to receive it, all of those things. And I find that the vast majority of 50%ers do get to 60 and do get to 70 and do get to 80. It takes a long time, but it's achievable. For the 1%ers or the 10%ers, it's less certain for me, because by that point, the resentment and possible hatred is too much to overcome. They don't want to overcome it. They could be overcome maybe, but the motivation for those individuals just aren't there. So discernment counseling to me is just a part of my general, there's a discernment component within every couple therapy scenario that I'm doing. But I don't have a method specifically around because, with discernment counseling, the method is fine, and it probably would work to some extent. But I find that the decision, especially for couples that have been together longer, discernment counseling can prime the pump or begin the process, but you can't really put a process on how one makes that decision. It's a similar kind of thing to say, how do you decide whether or not you want to be with someone to begin with at the beginning of a relationship? You're 6 months in, 12 months in, and you're falling in love, or you've fallen in love, but there's some problems. How do you know the right path? There is no way to figure that out. It's too ambiguous. It has to do with your soul or your spirit, or this weird coherence of factors that are in your gut and mind and just everything. And having worksheets that work out the pros and the cons, and having worksheets that you share with each other can absolutely help and prime the pump, as I said. But after all that is done, I find that most people are still kind of lost. They're still kind of like, especially if the conflict is still kind of there and they haven't had intimacy in 4 years, emotional or physical, and they are like, well, this was interesting. I kind of can see the pros and the cons, and I've heard my partner, and that's illuminating. But what do we do?
Yeah.
It's hard.
I am going to ask to borrow, I don't know, some book in your top 5 books on couples counseling.
Okay.
Because I stare at your books all the time. So this is a good way for me to get one out of your library. I promise to bring it back.
That'll be fine. So why don't you just riff into the microphone while I look, because maybe the listeners would be interested in.
Okay, I have something fun to talk about. So my sex therapy supervisor has asked me to create a training on tarot and their erotic. And I'm having the best time. And one of the things is that things are kind of coming full circle. So when I lived here in the 90s, before I went off to grad school, one of the people that was most supportive to me and changed my life for the better was the author and trans woman activist Kate Bornstein. I went off to New York, and she went off to New York at the same time. And so as I'm ordering books, trying to kind of get at what I want to get to in intuition and sexuality for this presentation, at some point I realized I was ordering books and not checking who the author was. And so that's how I got all these ChatGPT books off of Amazon. But off of Thrift Books, I got this book called Urban Tantra. I was so interested as to what it had to say. And it was written by Barbara Corrales, who is Kate Bornstein's long-term partner. So I was just cracking up to myself that, sometimes your life just takes these giant loops. And as I go into getting my sex therapy certification, I felt it as soon as I started class that all of the work I did around HIV education as a peer educator in the 90s, all of these theories around consent and communication, and now this urban tantra work, all of these people are coming back in. So I'm just going to give an update. I asked Kirk for one book. Because the desk is so tall, I can't see them. He's pulled 7 books.
I'm not going to give you all of these.
Right, but I want a brief summary. This is great.
Yeah.
I have to take a picture.
Okay.
While you talk, I'll take a picture.
So, one book is called Attachment and Psychotherapy. So I was having a hard time finding. So, when it comes to couple therapy, there are some manuals that I have, but I don't know how helpful they are to someone that's in your situation. So that was me making a face for the photo. Attachment site, and most of these books are on my website. I have a page of book recommendations, but this is by Wallen, and I wouldn't read this whole thing if I give this to you. I would just read bits and pieces. In terms of just straight up couple therapy stuff, there's Hold Me Tight, which is a seminal work by Dr. Sue Johnson, who recently died. Oh. It's the EFT kind of
I've read it, but maybe manual. I need to reread it.
But it's, I think, a good primer on the kinds of things I'm talking about attachment and how to know it and communicate it and take care of each other. I have a sort of self-help book called Attached. I can't remember if I interviewed this person on the podcast, but it's by Levine and Heller, and I think it's a good kind of lay person, but I think it's also good for clinicians. Although John Gray endorses this book on the, they'll have endorsements. and on the very front cover, because usually endorsements are on the back, but they have John Gray, who wrote this stupid-ass book, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From
Oh,
Venus.
yes. It's very famous.
Just a ridiculously stupid book. Non-scientific, misogynistic,
But
sexist.
Started a TV show. I mean, people love the concept
Well, yeah, there's a reason,
because it's reductionist. Yeah.
and it's sexist in a number of ways. But somehow it's sexist and manages to harm everybody, regardless of gender.
Funny how that works.
Not to mention trans or non-binary people that aren't even included. What planet are they from? Anyway, so
They're from Uranus.
yeah. So I also have a book by Janice Spring, After the Affair. Do they have an affair-ish? Is that in the past?
That's not always the issue, no.
Okay. I don't know. I feel like I want to give you schema therapy.
I should probably read it. Just
There's also this very dense book that is one of my Bibles called Interpersonal Process and Therapy by Tabor and McClure.
I should probably read that one too.
Okay, so I'll think about which ones that I want to possibly never see again. I always
give back.
You do?
Books. Yes,
I
I'm very
always,
good.
I always, because according to experience, there's probably a 10% chance I'll ever see the book again.
No,
but I guess with you, because I see you frequently.
Yes.
But
you know where I live. Also, you could always come get it.
I should also mention that I grabbed Systems Theory in Action by Shelley Smith Acuna. It's, again, just reading the first few chapters is a good way to kind of get a sense of how systems theory is so powerful when it comes to the circular causality of couples, Anyway, so let's take a break. We get back into the email. What do you say?
Okay.
All right, Becca, next email. It's a longer one, but I think it's important. YouTube member and patron Arava from the Netherlands. She says, I was born and raised in Israel, where I never felt at home. It's a very extroverted people's country. It's also too hot. And it's always leaning to the right wing and religious side with a pressure cooker of circumstances. For example, every passing month, people get angrier, less tolerable, more paranoid, and polarization of every aspect becomes more extreme. Religious versus secular, Arab versus Jews, right versus left, Jews from Europe versus Jews from Arab countries. At home, I was raised on the belief that I should always keep my guard up because I'm Jewish. And I was taught that the world is unsafe for Jews, so we should always fight for our right to live in Israel. By the way, both my grandmothers and grandfathers were Holocaust survivors. I am now 32 years old, and I'm living with my husband in the Netherlands. Plus, we have 4 cats. The situation in Gaza and Israel is taking its toll on every front of my life. Mm-hmm. With my family, it's stressful to make the weekly video call with them because of their stance on this issue. And even after asking them not to mention this, they continue discussing it after a few minutes. I still have not registered myself for a Dutch course, meaning to speak Dutch language, because it's full of expats from Arab countries, and I'm afraid of being the Israeli. I feel a deep and heavy weight on my soul from the things that are being done in Gaza in my name, quote unquote. And as the situation escalates, I feel less and less connected to my family or everything I've ever known. Mm-hmm. I wish I could erase my Israeli identity, even though it shaped me to be who I am, because I just can't admit to people where I'm from anymore. So I wish I could erase my Israeli identity. I feel like I don't belong anywhere and that I will never feel like I belong anywhere. What am I to do in this hurtful and restless situation? With admiration, love, care, and wishes for better times, Arava, and then she says it means willow in Hebrew. Mm-hmm. So what is she to do in this restless and hurtful situation?
Arava, I feel for you deeply. I also am a wandering Jew in these times. I don't participate in any organized Jewish activities because I don't know where I fit anymore. I think there's I would be surprised. My hope is that if you're in a class with people from other countries, they understand why you left. There's a reason you're not there. There's a reason that they're not in the countries that they're not in. So I would hope that you could find community, because people are on the road for all kinds of reasons. So in the story, I'm reminded of when I was so embarrassed to be traveling in 2017 as an American. I thought that everyone would give me a hard time. I was basically circling the Mediterranean for 3 months. I was in Spain for a month, Croatia for a month, and Turkey for 2 weeks. And what shocked me is that at the same time, Britain is going through Brexit, and they're like, "You're American, that's nothing. I'm British. I'm so embarrassed about what my country is doing right now." And I was expecting people to judge me, and no one judged me. And they wanted to know how I was surviving and how I was coping. So I'm hoping that you can take a risk and kind of go sign up for that class and see how it goes, because everybody's on the run for a reason right now. So hopefully you'll be able to make connections. And
is there a way for Jewish people and specifically Israelis to signal somehow? Is there a badge they can wear?
I mean, you could wear a Palestinian flag. You could do all kinds of things to signal.
Are there other things, like some organization? Like
I don't know. I mean, in the States, it's Jewish Voices for Peace, JVPV.
Okay.
No, P. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a way. I just start off straight with that when people ask me, "How are you doing?" And I say, "I'm a pro-Palestinian Jew, and I have been since I was 20 years old." I've walked around this. So I had this experience. We were talking in the break about people that tweak us. I had this experience in a supervision situation where a peer of mine was giving me a really hard time for the way that I was working with a pro-Israel client. And she was like, "How can you sit with this?" And I was like, "I've sat with this discussion for my entire adult life. Like, this isn't a problem. This isn't a deep conflict for me. I can sit with people on the other side of this." But I've also been very open about who I am. So I think some of this is saying, "Hey, I come from this country and I left for this country because I don't believe in this country anymore." I would hope that short introduction would allow connections for this patron. It's hard to tell that story as a Jewish person, to say, "I was brought up in this environment. My grandparents survived the Holocaust. This is my story." My grandparents, not all my grandparents. No, my grandparents were here. She's 25 years younger than us. She said she was 33.
Yeah.
She's 20 years younger than us. But there are huge swaths of my family that are dead due to the Holocaust. There's no one for me to go back to see. They're all gone. So all of this is very real for me in this sense. I also grew up exactly like she did. Israel has to be defended. There's no choice. And when I began to investigate that for myself, I was like, that doesn't seem right. So to this patron, I would say you are allowed some individuation in this process. You clearly need to individuate from your family for your own sanity. They're not going to be able to change. What Israeli can you get to change the topic? This is a cultural Jewish joke. Israelis are famous for their very, very strong opinions. And that culture that she's talking about, of everything is an argument, everything has a side, that can be really exhausting once you don't want to participate in that anymore. So I would say give yourself time, allow yourself to land somewhere new and be somewhere new. Identity formation is a very difficult, long process. I don't know if your husband is the ethnicity of the country that you're in, or how you got to that country, but you've clearly been on a journey. And this means also that your family has emigrated every single generation for 3 generations. that's a long time of not landing. So I think there's a real piece here of allowing yourself to be in the place where you are. It sounds like that place is safe and you have a lot of things to enjoy. It's really making me think about PTSD and how the symptoms begin to change. The more new memories you create, positive memories you create, the smaller your PTSD symptoms get to. So I hope you get out and enjoy that country as much as you possibly can. And keep those conversations with your parents short because you're going to get triggered every single week.
Yeah.
Yeah, this stuff is not easy.
Yeah. And, I'm sure I'm not the first person to say this, but it is a sick irony that you have Jewish people that are far flung and being oppressed just because of who they are. But it's for this other reason than it was, or additional reasons now, right? That you have all these Jewish people there's no home and there is persecution. How once again you have Jewish people that have to flee and hide in attics, right?
Right. You keep talking. I'm looking up the name of an actress.
Okay.
And I would look for people who are speaking the way that you might not be able to speak for yourself. Like, do you know who Hannah Einbinder is? She's the young lead in the Hacks show on HBO. And she is super out about being pro-Palestinian, anti-genocide. And every once in a while she comes across my feed doing something incredibly brave.
And she's Jewish?
She's Jewish in an industry that does not make a lot of room for folks who are pro-Palestinian. And I'm like, it just like warms my heart to see her. So I would say if you feel voiceless in your situation, finding someone who has found their voice is incredibly inspiring. I mean, I always return to Angela Davis, who just got honored at a Valkyries basketball night. They had a night inspired by her. And she has been pro-Palestinian from the very beginning for decades and decades and decades. And I always return to her words when I get lost because I haven't heard those own words in my own community. So finding people who do speak those words has, kept me going.
Yeah. It makes me wonder, hearing your vibe and hope of people accepting you if you were to communicate your position. It makes me wonder if Arava in the Netherlands, if due to her upbringing, because she was born and raised in Israel, you're born and raised in the States, and so now she's in the Netherlands, which I'm just going to take a guess and say that it's at least a similar situation socially regarding, because, on one hand, they're closer in geography, but their country isn't actively supporting Israel and the war machine. The activism in the United States is pretty intense because of that, right? Whereas so anyway, I'm saying all this because I wonder if Arava is kind of still stuck in that us versus them.
Oh, yeah.
And not trusting or believing or having faith that the thems will hear her or accept her. Now, certainly some won't.
Right. I mean, it's a law of averages, right? You're going to find your people. You're going to find some people that reject you. But if you never say who you are, you're killing your own soul, right? Like, that's the difference of like, you just have to check out the waters every once in a while.
Right. And her longer email talked about how she's depressed and isolated and she can't speak the language. That's why she's mentioning that. And so this isolation and might be at least partially fueled by the assumption that the thems will see her the way that her family sees thems. But the others, as your experience is, there's people that will hear you. And even if they think that you are pro-Israel, they're not going to jump down your throat necessarily. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I also want to recommend the Institute for Jewish Spirituality, which has a ton of really cool classes happening constantly. And that's a place when I'm like, I can't connect with anyone else right now. I know I totally know what she's talking about. I feel it so much of like, where would I go and feel connection? I get a lot from taking their classes and being with other people who are contemplating at a very complex and spiritual level what it means to be participating in this 6,000-year-old narrative that is a Jewish identity. It is one of the longest recorded continual cultures on our planet. There is a reason that these identities are so complex and we come from so many different places, and it can get very polarized. And then there are these magic moments that I'm always hunting for where it's like profoundly spiritual for me. And I feel connected by these like ancient rhythms and ancient words and ancient texts and ancient thoughts. And like, I can kind of, the ickiness kind of fades away for a minute, but I'll admit like I'm doing most of that online at this point because I'm terrified to go into public spaces and get in an argument with someone about Israel. Like, I don't have it in me right now to do. Mm-hmm. And that's why when I was in this supervision situation and this woman came at me, I was like, you've got to be kidding. Like, I am so exhausted. She wasn't Jewish either. I was like, you have no place.
What did she say exactly?
She didn't think I should be seeing somebody because they were pro-Israel and I was pro-Palestine.
But how did she say it exactly?
She said it in a real bad way. Like, you need to stop seeing this client.
You need to fire this client because of a political view?
Yeah.
That's like fucking ridiculous.
I know. I was shaking and I tried my best to confront her online and it was really painful. And luckily the supervisor stepped in. But I was like, you have no idea.
This was a fellow supervisee?
Yes.
Telling you what to do?
Yes.
Fuck her.
Exactly. I was so upset. I was like...
But not surprising, honestly.
No.
I see those sentiments.
Well, and also I was like, I just said to her, can you please stop? Like, just know I can't go on. And she was like, no, I have one more thing to say to you. And we had to keep our cameras on in this situation. And I instinctively, out of self-preservation, I closed my eyes because that's all I could do. And she was like, oh, I see you're done listening. And I was like, yeah, I asked you to stop and you couldn't stop.
The supervisor didn't step in right away?
They did. They did a great job.
If I was I would have shut the fuck. I would have been like, oh, wait a second. If you want to state an opinion, then let's talk. But you're not going to talk to my supervisee this way.
Yeah, it got handled.
And you're wrong.
Yeah.
And if you fire a client based on a political point of view, get out of my supervision group. Honestly.
Well, I mean, the whole thing was really rough, but it reminded me
like you're a menace because no client is going to agree with you politically. What the fuck are you doing? What are you talking about?
Well, so back to our writer inner, back to our patron. I know what it's like. I mean, I was like, I didn't even think I was putting myself out on the ledge to say like, I am a Jewish person doing this work, but I know what this person is saying by me just saying I am Jewish right now. There is a charge to it, right? This fellow supervisee makes all of these assumptions. Like she can't stop herself from going down this track of what
even so, if an Israeli soldier were to enter into a Palestinian hospital, I would hope that the doctors, given their oath and their morals, would help that person. That is what you do. So that's an extreme example, but more down to earth, I suppose. Imagine if an ER doctor refused to treat and they're a Republican and they refuse to treat a Democrat. No, therapists are the same. We don't refuse to treat people based on a political point of view. That is thought police.
Trust me, the whole thing was so bad. I was shaking. I was like, and you know me, like when would I ever sit here with my eyes closed? Like I was So flooded. Anyways, back to the person that wrote in. Yeah, it is hard to speak about our identity right now because people get so... There was a fear, and it just happened to me, that like someone would, make all kinds of assumptions because of what I'm saying and not say, hey, who are you? And this is, what's it like for you to have sat with this woman in the last 2 years? How is that for you? What kind of support are you getting? How are you handling it? So I can understand why this woman is like, I can't possibly go to a Netherlands language class because I'll say I'm Israeli and everyone will like jump down my throat.
Or at least one will.
Yeah.
Right.
But we are in a crisis of loneliness. And the best way out of depression is to reach out. The unfortunate thing is it's a law of averages. It can take several reaching outs to find the yeses, but you're never going to find the yeses if you never reach out. So you gotta... I wish I could somehow be a support. I guess this is my support to you.
And I'm not a fan of lying, but...
I wouldn't lie. I would...
But you could just not say the truth.
Well, she could say...
she has an accent probably.
Right.
And I'm just thinking But
I'm thinking like she's going to be in a room full of people that have ended up in this place for all kinds of... Everyone's there for a reason.
Right. The Dutch language class is one venue, but there's other venues, you know what I mean? There's other places.
And I would hope... So my aunt teaches volunteers with language classes as a tutor. And the story she tells of everyone that's in that class of how they got there, everyone has a story of why they have immigrated. And you might hear all kinds of stories that you never thought. I mean, this is a chance for terrifying and interesting connection. And everybody's mastery of the Dutch language is going to be so limited that you're basically going to get each other's names, maybe how long you've been there. And you might talk to the teacher before and say, I'm scared. I'm from a country that people hate. I left there because I also hate it. What's it going to be like to be in your class? Can you support me if everybody jumps down my throat? Yeah, it's not, this stuff is highly politicized, and we've talked about this 1,000 times, but people get real tweaked about Jews. Like, anti-Semitism is no joke. I've dealt with it my whole life. There's another, if you can find a Nagoon circle. The other thing that I attend regularly to soothe my soul is just a Jewish chanting circle. It meets online, and all we do is chant together. My aunt is also a lay chant teacher, and I listen to her work as well. So I guess I'm saying touch into the parts of the culture that also feed you. Like if there's, the first thing that's going to happen in this class, week 3, you're all going to feed each other your favorite dishes from your country. Like, connect on food, connect on music, connect on your grandparents' story. Every person in that class, their grandparents survived a genocide of some kind or another. Like, these are the things that bring us together. And I hope that you can find that, because being isolated in a strange country, when I traveled for all those months, especially Croatian, it's they conjugate their nouns 5 different ways. And so even after a month, the only word that I picked up was water, vod, like vodka, water, liquid. I just would spend hours sitting in silence in strange places listening to words that had no meaning. It began to have like a meditative space for me, but I knew I was eventually going back to a language where I could communicate with people, but not being able to communicate is really, really hard.
Yeah. Let's have a palate cleanser. One final email.
Okay.
What do you say? Did you have some more to say?
Yeah, just find community.
Yeah.
I said it 400 times. I'll say it one more time.
Middle tier patron Waylon from Bremerton. He says,
Bremerton Navy base. Take a ferry from here to there.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cute as a button.
Yeah. I am currently an undergrad student at the Human Services, I think, Substance Use, SUDP, Substance Use. I don't know. I don't know what that means, SUDP. So I'm not going to assume. But anyway.
It's addiction counseling?
Maybe, I don't know, but it's undergrad, so I don't know what SUDP stands for. But Human Services Program at Olympic College in Bremerton. My plan once I finish my associate's degree is to move to Seattle and transfer either to University of Washington or Seattle U and finish my bachelor's in psychology. And then I want to do graduate studies in couple and family therapy, thanks in large part to listening to this podcast at either Seattle U or Antioch University. The interesting question is, I have very little experience with romantic relationships, and my family dynamic growing up was sort of unique. I was an only child with a single dad who was an alcoholic, and we lived with my grandmother and my aunt. It was confusing and atypical for me, and there's a lot about it that I haven't had the opportunity to really process in my own personal therapy. I've heard you and others mentioned in the podcast that couple and family therapy graduate programs tend to really get in deep with going into personal family histories as part of the coursework. And I feel this would be really beneficial for me on a personal and professional level. Is it common for people to go into this profession so they can work through their own issues?
Yes.
Is there anything wrong with that?
No.
Thanks for all the great work
You're
you,
welcome.
Bob, Umberta, and Rebecca do. What do you say to that, Rebecca?
Yeah, I mean, everybody shows up. Even if you think you've unpacked your stuff, you show up and you just get blasted open. I mean, I remember the first quarter of graduate school, I was just a crying, weeping mess. And I had been in therapy for 15 years at that point. Like, you're just looking at it at a different level. You're watching your peers do it. You're reading all of this academic text that, you know, you go through medical student syndrome where you think you have every diagnosis that you learn about. I also want to say that ace identity, not having sexual relationships, is becoming more common and popular. And I would think in grad school there'd be more room. I don't know if this person identifies as asexual or they just haven't had.
Or aromantic. They say I have very little experience with romantic relationships.
Yeah. So that would be a niche that you could serve with clients who also have that experience. It's really, really growing. Yeah, I would say welcome to the party.
Yeah. He's also probably 19 or 20.
Yeah, grab a box of Kleenex.
Yeah.
And get ready to talk about yourself. And also know this. I was always surprised that the students were like, oh my God, they know everything about me. They probably sit around and talk about me. And I just would laugh inside and be like, your story's not that interesting. Like, you may think you have the most outrageous story ever, but like, by the time you're teaching in graduate school, you've seen it all, heard it all, witnessed a ton of stuff. And the student stories, we don't fixate on them. We fixate on their behavior in class if they're acting out due to what's happened to them. But like your average, your story is unique. All of our family systems are unique. That shouldn't deter anyone from going to grad school.
Yeah. I mean, it is a vulnerable act to open up in a paper with a professor that you've only known for 5 weeks by that point. So I get that. But yeah, the stories that I read about, I will often forget after a few months because of just data overload in my brain. So and like you said, there's nothing, even extreme stories like being raped by one's parent or something, as a therapist and as a professor, these are the stories that we hear all the time. So it's not extremely novel to hear a story like that.
I remember there was a family system. We made genograms out of clay, and it was incredibly powerful for me. And I included my childhood dogs in my genogram, and I started tearing up in class because I was an only child, and to lose the dogs was like to lose a sibling, basically. And then I was on my own, and I was like, oh my God, this is the most embarrassing thing I've ever done. But I'm sure the teacher, all my peers, no one remembers that moment at all. But, I had to unravel that story for myself. So a lot of stuff gets disclosed in graduate school. And that's part of the zeitgeist of being there.
Yeah, and to put a fine point on it, Wayland in Bremerton, you're asking, you're saying, I haven't really processed it that much, if at all. Is that going to be a problem? And the thing I'll say is that as a professor that taught specifically this class, this was of all the classes that I taught this one the most, over 25 plus years, family of origin, where we specifically will, as a part of the assignments, all the assignments, the papers, it's all investigating their own childhood, right? And using the concepts and the theories that they've learned to apply to it. And so I can tell you that there's a spectrum of pre-awareness of students. You'll have some students that are 50 years old and they've been through 30 years of therapy, and yet, as Rebecca is saying, those students still make massive strides in their awareness because it's so concentrated and the concepts illuminate things that weren't illuminated prior. So there's that, but there's also people at the other end of the spectrum, usually younger students, who have not looked into it at all. And yet, so as a professor, I would just take them where they were, and I would just want to move them down the road, wherever that was. I wouldn't expect those students to have supreme awareness. And really, awareness isn't what I grade people on. It's really the technical side of writing, and do they understand the concept?
Right, openness to learning. I think so many early grad students don't understand that that's what we're looking for, is your ability to be open to learning new concepts.
Right.
That's a whole battle.
Right. You don't have to be healed. I'm not grading you on how healed or aware you are. So,
but also, great time to use free resources. I don't know if they've done Al-Anon for their issues with their alcoholic father, but this would be the perfect time to sit with other people looking at how alcohol impacted their family system.
And also, middle tier patron Waylon from Bremerton, thank you for answering the call to Couple and Family Therapy, because we need more people out there that are helping people. So
yeah, and with your family history, you're going to help so many people. Mm-hmm. I mean, I would say an alcoholic or drug addicted parent is one of the main reasons that people come to therapy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And as another benefit, being a dude, you will get a lot of clients at your internship and at agency, because there's not a lot of dudes. And as therapists, there's also not a lot of dudes, and there's even fewer dudes in couple and family therapy, as I experienced. I didn't have any idea until I was in it. And there's a lot of clients that are looking for a male therapist. And so you'll, as I did, have a pretty easy time getting clients.
I mean, I think in art therapy, it's 98% female.
Yeah. Right. So it's like counselors are like 85 or 80%, and CFT, couple and family therapy, is 85% maybe or something, and then art therapy is like off the charts women. So that's just another little benefit and a need that I thank you for meeting. Anyway, so that is it for that episode of Psychology in Seattle, in which we talk about maggots in Rebecca's compost bin.
Wish me luck. Hopefully by the time this airs, the maggot. Poor E, I wrote them, and they're like, "What do you need me to do?" I was like, "When that bin gets picked up, we got to flip it over and hose it out." Like,
I would burn it.
I mean, you can't burn your compost. I mean, I guess I could. Can I say, like, it's so gross? City, will you come pick it up and give me a new one?
Yeah.
Do I deserve a new bin at this point?
Yeah.
Have I been fully traumatized?
Or I would just move to another city or something. And that does it for that episode of Psychology Set. We're going to say goodbye. Take care of yourself, because
we like you a lot.